So before we kick things off properly, I want to run a very quick poll. How are you guys feeling today? This is, one of the things that you should do in every session. Adding in a PowerPoint poll, adding in an icebreaker poll via the word cloud is a great way to kick off a session. And icebreakers are essential when you're running a session. So I'm just going to put in a few options myself. A little bit chilly. And all you got to do is type in the box and press send once you've submitted your answers. You can send as many different responses as you like. I can see here in the PowerPoint add-in that I've got 19 of 23 responses. So I'm going to close that off now. So just wait a couple of seconds. You do have to wait a little bit longer than the standard multiple choice polls for them to appear, but you can see we've got our word cloud here, and the most sort of positive terms here are good, cold, that's myself, a little bit chilly, somebody needs a coffee. I definitely did yesterday because I didn't get a lot of sleep on Monday night, but yeah, glad everybody's doing okay. So just to show you a little bit about me, it's not a plug, I can assure you, but just to tell you a little bit about where I'm from here within the business. So I've been with Vevox for about 5 years, working in customer success for the last 2, maybe nearly 3. And I feel like a lot of the time I've seen it all when it comes to the platform, but then regularly now, as we deal with lots more customers, I'm still getting surprised and finding new ways to use the platform. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because there's a few new ideas that have come up that I wanted to share. But importantly, I firmly believe in the process. So start off with the foundations and the building blocks, and then you can start to get creative. So it's always better to start off slow before jumping into all of the crazy stuff. Hopefully by the end of this session, we can then make you a pro. So the agenda for today, we're going to look at initially why to run polls through PowerPoint. Quick recap of the basics, just to remind you what to do. Talk about what polls to use in the right scenario. What can the PowerPoint add-in do that the dashboard can't? Some examples of advanced slides, and then we'll do some Q&A. So how much do you know about polling in PowerPoint? Now, I'm hoping that most people on this call will probably be option 2, maybe option 3. So you use it, but you don't know all of the quirks of how it works, and that's why you're here today. Hopefully I haven't got anybody that thinks they literally know everything, because I'm sure there's a few surprises. But pop your vote in. I'm just keen to sort of see what people think. Are you completely new? Do you not know a lot, but enough to use it and get by? Pretty confident, or you know everything? So I'm going to close this off in 3, 2, 1. That's pretty much what I was hoping to see. So good to see a few new faces, so that I will recap the basics for those of you that are brand new to the platform. And then for those of you that know enough, or you're pretty confident, hopefully we can get you right down to, I feel like I know literally everything by the end of this session. So the main thing is, why run polls in PowerPoint? We have our dashboard, which is amazing. So why bother with PowerPoint? What's the deal? First and foremost, it's super easy. You don't have to switch across from this platform to your dashboard and back again. There's no switching. The audience don't have to see the behind the scenes, and it just makes your life so much easier. I've already run 2, 3 polls in PowerPoint already to show, without having to switch to something else. The data always stays in your slide deck as well. So once you've run your session, if you need to share this with a colleague that wants to have a look at the PowerPoint session afterwards, it doesn't matter if they don't have the add-in installed on their machine, because the data it's made up of PowerPoint objects, so that data is retained forever. It's simple to set up and quick in any slide deck. So it doesn't matter if your slide deck was created 3 years ago or last week, or it's fresh, you can add Vevox to it. But the most important point, it stops what we've called death by PowerPoint. And what I mean by that is, you've got somebody that's just starts their session, drones on for an hour, doesn't invite you to participate in any way, and by the end of it, your eyes have glazed over because there's lots of content, lots of slides, and it's all a bit dry. The point about Vevox is that you're making your session more exciting, more interesting, and more engaging. There's a slide that I think we've referenced in another webinar about the meeting attentiveness curve, which I think was mentioned in the town hall webinar. And the idea behind that is that typically when your participants first join your webinar, they're engaged, they're welcomed in the session, they're pretty excited to talk about what it is they're here to learn about, and then very quickly they drift off. They start looking at emails, start looking at Teams, maybe even their WhatsApp on their phone, and they start to lose focus on what you're talking about. And Vevox is designed to prevent that. So at various points throughout your session, if you ask a poll or you ask them to send you some questions for the Q&A, or you run a quick survey, you're breaking up their sort of need to go and look at other things because they're getting bored of your session, and keeping them engaged in what you're talking about. You'll notice that there's a bit more functionality in the PowerPoint add-in and the dashboard, and also more customization as well. So just a quick recap of the basics for Vevox. You have to create your Vevox session first, because you have to have something that you need your PowerPoint add-in to connect to. So it's always best practice to create your Vevox session first. You create all of your polls here in PowerPoint. You don't have to build anything in the dashboard. Once you've created your session, you can leave it, ignore it, and just let it do its thing. Create your polls in PowerPoint. And then once you've run those polls, they then get imported into Vevox. And that's basically it. Those are the two real main things you have to do when you want to use the PowerPoint add-in. The other one is make sure your session's connected, make sure your session has started, make sure that when you connect it all together, you're good to go. How you build the slides and stuff, you will see how to do that shortly when we go through the session. So just a quick recap about the different polls that are available in PowerPoint and when to use them. We have our sort of what I've referenced at the beginning, icebreakers. Now they can be any kind of poll, but I think the best one is the word cloud. It can kind of be used as a sneaky way to understand how your audience are feeling about, whether it's a particular topic or just in general. I ran the question, how are you feeling today? When we were going through COVID, it was something that we did quite a lot here at Vevox, was every time we had a team meeting, every time we had a town hall, every time we did sometimes even a Monday morning stand-up, how are you feeling? It's important to hear from your colleagues, to learn what's going on, but in such a way that it doesn't feel like there's a lot of pressure. It's not a survey or anything like that. It's not a personal question. It's just, how's it going? It's really good at getting people in the frame of mind of how Vevox works, because we're doing an innocuous question like, do you like tea or coffee, cats or dogs? Those kinds of questions, you're getting everybody in the right frame of mind to use Vevox, and they understand how it works before it's actually important. Because the worst thing that can happen in any session is you don't do an icebreaker, you get to a moment where it's absolutely mission critical for the whole point of doing this session, and people haven't connected. And you're short on time, you've only got a minute or two to get people in, and it's a bit fiddly, and people don't really know what they're doing, they've not used it before, and it all kind of falls apart. Having an icebreaker prevents that. Multiple choice polls are incredibly versatile, probably the most versatile question that we have, because that can be a numeric score. You can add pictures to it now in the PowerPoint add-in. That can just be your multiple different options. It can be a quiz, you can have images, etc. Word clouds are probably the best kind of icebreaker, as I've mentioned, really impactful because you build that image of all your words. Numeric polls are great for training or sentiment analysis using net promoter score type questions. The open text poll is a little bit different in PowerPoint. It's basically designed as a data capture method. Because of the way that the open text poll works, you want people to submit long, full text-based answers that can be up to 2,000 characters. It's very difficult to display that on a slide because it is a finite amount of space. It's not like a web page where you can scroll. And the idea that with it being a data capture method, you can then review all of that content at a later date and discuss it in your own time. And then the rating question is a really good way of rating ideas, getting feedback, talking about particular topics, and just sort of gauging what people think about a subject. So these are the things that the PowerPoint add-in can do that the dashboard can't. So you can do countdown clocks, including music. You can do time limits on polls. Be a bit sensible when putting a time limit on it, though. We did a session maybe 6 months ago where a colleague did a fun quiz, but put 5 seconds on his timer to answer the question, and it was chaos. So I wouldn't suggest going quite that short on your timer, but you can have a time limit on your polls. You can recall previous results from earlier on in the presentation. You can combine results together, and you can also compare results. So it's something we'll look at all of these as we go. The other side of things is you can get quite creative and use these polls in almost an entirely different way from how they were designed to start with. So first question, so the first thing you can do is completely resize and rearrange your polls. They don't have to be the bar charts in the middle of your screen. You can have full branding and customization. So I'm currently using the standard Vevox template, but you'll see later I can completely redesign my slides to have whatever branding or color scheme that I want, and it's entirely up to me. You can add images to polls, but multiple images, not just one, via the dashboard. And you can create what's called a non-linear or audience-led slide deck. And we'll go through how to do all of these as we progress. So we're going to start with part one, which is your countdown clock, time limits, recalling previous poll results, combining results, and comparison polls. So I'm not going to ask you this question yet. I'm going to press escape and cancel this poll, and we're going to start creating some. So you can see the sort of behind the scenes view now. This is how you build polls. And we're going to start with a countdown clock and your time limit. So I want to add a poll in, and I'm just going to add a very simple multiple choice poll. Do you prefer tea or coffee? Tea, coffee, or neither? That's our question. So as I mentioned, you can completely redesign how things look on the screen. A big tip here, under preferences, this cog at the top here, go down to this bottom left-hand corner and ensure that auto fit charts automatically is unticked. That way you'll be able to manipulate everything on the slide. So I could make this a little bit smaller, I could drag it down, and then I could have a picture of a coffee cup or something here if I wanted to. But that is my poll created. What I want to then do is add that countdown clock. So I need to go to display options, again, under the Vevox tab, go to display options, and then I want to go down here where it says countdown clock, and I want to show the clock during the poll. So I tick that, and now I've got my clock that's appeared. Again, I can move that and I can put it wherever I want. I can also go and I can change the size. I can make my font bigger. I can then also decide, as we mentioned before, whether the clock closes the poll. So that sets that time limit to my question. I'm going to adjust mine for 15 seconds, and it can be as long or short as you want. You can also add sounds during polls. Now, you're not going to be able to hear the sound on this poll purely because of the way GoToWebinar is set up. It won't let me share it with you, but using Teams and sharing system audio or presenting it live with speakers and things, you will be able to hear this music. So you choose play sound during poll, and we've got some default sounds that you can use, but alternatively, if you have a file on your machine, and it has to be downloaded on your machine, like an MP3 or a different audio file type, then you can use that sound here. So we've used Countdown theme tune before, or Jeopardy. You can also have a sound when the poll is closed, and again, it's the same principle. You can add your own sound if you want to, or you've got the default ones here. But that's done now. Our poll is created, we've got our countdown clock, we've got it set to turn off the poll when we're done, so that poll is ready. Before we start running through these, we're going to then create a recall, we're going to combine results, and we're going to do a comparison at the very end. So I would like to recall the results, because I'm going to ask you the same question again. I want to recall the results from earlier. So I go to Vevox, click on Add Analysis Slide, and I want to add it on a new slide, and I want to recall, and I just need to choose slide 6. I can also change the title. So what did you say earlier? Press Add. Now that's created our recall result. Then I'm going to ask you that question again, and this time I want to combine your answers from before. So I go to Add Analysis on a new slide. I want to total them up, and I want to choose how much did you know about PowerPoint polling up there, and then I want to choose slide 15. So I'm just going to combine them together. You can combine up to 6 different polls as long as they are the same results. And press add. Now, one thing I would want to change is I want to change it so rather than it saying percentages, I want it to be numbers. So again, I've got display options already open, so I want to go and just change it to numbers because I want to know the number of people that voted for those options rather than a percentage. The last thing we're going to do is create that comparison poll. So right down at the bottom of my deck, I'm going to ask you that question one final time. How much you know about polling in PowerPoint? So I'm going to add a comparison poll. So this is compare, and I want to look at slide 6, slide 15, and slide 29. And I want to see, you know, are we more confident? And I can say start, change the label, middle, and end, because I'm going to ask it 3 times throughout the session. And then I just press add. So it's currently not got any information in it because it's not revealing the results, but it just gives you an idea of how that looks. Now, all of this can be customized as well. You can change the colors of these bars. This will fit the design template that you're using. And you'll notice in my slide deck, I've got some questions like that as well. So we're going to go back to slide 12 and go back into our slideshow. So I have our first question. Do you prefer tea or coffee? Now I can hear the sound that's going through the clock. I can hear it ticking down. It's a shame that you won't be able to hear it through GoToWebinar, but it does work when you want to. I just wanted to show you how that worked. And you can also see that I wasn't touching anything and the clock closed the poll automatically. So you've got the results on the screen here. Coffee is a sort of marginal victor. So now I want to reveal the results from earlier. All I need to do is press enter and it just reveals our results from before. So that's just displaying exactly what was on that earlier slide. Now I'm going to go through and ask you the same question again. So at this point in the webinar, are you still feeling that you're not a lot but enough to use it? Are you feeling a little bit more confident just by looking at those quick examples of the analysis slides? Let's hopefully get a vote in. And I'll close this off in 3, 2, 1. And we can see, if we go to the next slide, we can, later on, we'll be able to reveal that there is a significant shift, but we can already see that there is. And then if I combine the results here, we had 7 votes total for I'm new to it, 24 votes total for not a lot, but enough to use it, and 21 votes for I'm pretty confident. So we'll then look at a comparison later on. These next set of slides are even more advanced. So the first ones are kind of almost like your default advanced because it's just part of what the PowerPoint add-in can do. This is then when you kind of take it to the next level and get a bit more creative about how you do things. So here is an example of a poll. Now this was a standard multiple choice poll and I've turned it into a picture poll. Done some editing, changed the format, changed the background, font, etc. to match my design. If I open the poll, you'll see that I've still got the titles for those films. So you can choose Uncharted, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Batman, Death on the Nile, or Fantastic Beasts 3: The Secrets of Dumbledore. I'm going to choose Doctor Strange. The last Spider-Man was pretty good. And the trailer for this one looked even better. So let's close that poll in 3, 2, 1. And what's going to happen here is the percentages of what people chose are now underneath those images. So they match up nicely with what's being shown on the phone. The percentages are the same. And we can see that Doctor Strange was the winner. You can also use it to do quiz questions. So very similar concept. Which of these is the real Eiffel Tower? Believe it or not, 2 of those Eiffel Towers on screen aren't the real version. They are a fake. Now, I'm going to intentionally choose a wrong option just so that we've got some different options on there, but I'd be interested to know which one you guys think is real. So I'm going to close this off in 3, 2, 1. So I've managed to trick you all. If I reveal the correct answer, we can reveal that the correct answer is C. Option A is actually in China. Believe it or not, that is China. That's not France. And then this is obviously in Las Vegas. And then the real one here on the right, option C, sorry, is actually Paris. And so what I've done here is, you may have seen a correct answer question on the dashboard. I've just removed the tick and I've replaced it with a nice green glow, added a little animation, and it just highlights what's the correct answer. Slightly better than the little tick that used to appear. So what I'm going to do now is I want to show you how to build one of these questions. And we'll do it a much more basic version. We'll go through and create another one of these what film should I watch questions. So we want to add a poll to a new slide. And we'll do multiple choice again. What should I watch next? And I'm just going to choose 3. Uncharted, Batman, and Doctor Strange 2. So we've got our 3 choices. So it's going to start out life as a standard bar chart. Now, again, over here on display options, you've got an option here that says layout, and you want to select all shapes. Now, what we want to do is delete a lot of what's on the slide. To be clear, you can delete everything that's on the slide except this vote trigger. If you delete the vote trigger, the poll won't work. So you can delete everything else. You can delete the poll open box. You can delete the ID, delete the title, go for it, but don't delete the vote trigger. So let's just hide that back out of the way. What I want to do is select all shapes, and I want to choose my bars. Now it's highlighted them all. All I do is press delete on my keyboard, and those bars have been taken away. I want to do the same thing with my choice numbers, that 1, 2, 3, we don't need those. I'm going to get rid of them. I want to do my choice text, and I want to make those bars smaller so I can move them around on screen. And then I want to select all of my data labels. Now, if I just move those along, this is another super important step. Group your choice text, which is what's going to show in the app, and your percentages together. If you don't do that, you could run the risk of something that happened to me, and I had egg on my face because I was thinking that I was a pro at the time. It was 4 years ago. I ran a quiz for some colleagues, and I put the percentages in the wrong place. So everybody got the question right, but I put the percentage in the wrong place. So it looked on screen that everybody got the question wrong. So do link them together before you start. What I want to then do is click on the title, press the control key, press and hold the control key, and then select both of them and just move them out of the way. So let's move those out of the way. Now we want to add in some pictures. So insert pictures, and we want to go from this device, and I want to use the Uncharted poster. So I want to make that smaller, and then I want to duplicate it so I've got 3 of the same picture. Now this doesn't have to be perfect because this is just to show you how it works. So now we've got our 3 pictures. I need to right click, and I want to change this picture to the right one. So we know that the Batman was option 2. And then we change that again, right click, change picture from file. And then Doctor Strange 2 is the other one. Now I can then move my percentages into the right spot. So again, I can just put the percentages underneath where they need to be. Move the Batman into the right place. Again, you've got all the alignment tools from PowerPoint here, so you can make them quite quickly aligned in the right spot. However, you can, as you saw, you can get far more creative with how you lay things out, how you set things out, or the formatting that you do. But this is the question finished, really. So then if we just put it into slideshow mode, and we press enter to start the poll, we've now got the picture open. So again, all you need to do is cast a vote. I'm going to change it and choose a different one. Put in your choices, and then we'll see the percentages appear at the bottom of the screen shortly about which one you think I should watch next. So let's close that poll. And now we can see at the bottom, we've got our percentages on screen. So now the overwhelming vote is for Batman, which does look pretty good. I'm very excited to see that one. So that's how you build a picture poll. It's very simple, very straightforward. Now we're moving on to the slightly more complicated one, which is your audience-led session. This works in two ways. Option one, really good for training or education or any kind of situation where you want to provide a question and then have a consequence for that question. So that might be a training scenario. You see something, what do you do based on what you saw? They vote, and then you choose for the option that they voted for the highest, and that then takes you to the consequence of their choice. And you can just repeat that process. Option two, a bit more suitable for the business scenario where you're doing a town hall perhaps, or we have a quarterly briefing here at Vevox about all the different parts of the company. We could do it in a similar way where we could say, what do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about sales or customer success or finance or whatever? And based on what the audience choose is how we go through those slides. So you create it in a fairly linear way, but what it means is then in practice, your audience might start on slide 1, then go to slide 10, then to slide 6, and then to slide 18, depending on how you've got it built. But this is a really good way of getting that extra level of engagement because your audience are having a direct input in what they want to learn. They're not just passively taking in the information, they're telling you, this is what we want to talk about. So this is an example of how this works. What do you want to discuss first? So do you want to look at Q1 results or Q2 targets? Fairly common thing that you would do in any kind of team meeting. So just pop in your choice, Q1 results or Q2 targets. Just there's no real content here. It's not actually legitimate. I've made everything up. So you're not going to see any secrets of Vevox as you go through here. I'm going to close this off in 3, 2, 1. And narrowly, we want to look at Q2 targets first. So this is where we're going to start. We're going to go to Q2 targets. I just need to click on this option here. That takes us to our targets. We can look through whatever it was on the screen, whatever content we want to share. We can talk about it, we can engage with it. And then when we're done, we need to go on to the next section. Now, there are only 2 sections. If I click next poll, I don't actually need to run my poll. So if I press escape, it will cancel my poll. I don't need to ask you what to look at. I can just go on to the right section. So I just click Q1 results and move on. Again, we talk about the content on the screen, and then when we're happy to move across to the next section that's not linear or non-linear like we've done it now, we can then just use these buttons to skip ahead. So if I skip ahead, we can now make one. So let's spend a couple of minutes just building one of these. So I've got 2 options here, scenario A and scenario B. I first of all want to build a poll that takes you to the right slides. So I'm going to go to Vevox, add a poll, and what do you want to talk about? Scenario A and scenario B. We have our 2 options. Just press add, and that builds us a standard multiple choice poll. What I then want to do is create these hyperlinks. So if I create a hyperlink here, right click, and I need to go to link. And importantly, I need to choose place in this document. So I want to then link it to the slide that says scenario A. I want to do the same here. So again, highlight that text, right click, link, and do the same to scenario B. With Vevox in PowerPoint, you can also duplicate the slides. So let's duplicate that slide, and I can move that in between so that we know what kind of order our slides are going to go in. And then the last thing I need to do is create some buttons. So I need to insert a shape. Doesn't matter what shape you use. I just quite like this sort of rounded rectangle. And then edit the text. So next poll, and then I want to copy this. Right click, edit text, and change it to skip ahead. So we've got our two buttons. Now, if I just right click here, right click on the button, press a link, I then want to choose the relevant section. So that's going to be slide 29, that same question again. And this time we're going to move across to our, let's see if we're more confident slide, which is down here. There it is, slide 31. Then if I just copy both of these again, press and hold Control, oops, copy that, paste it in, copy that one, and paste it in. And now I've got my two buttons on both those slides as well, going to the right place. So that's our non-linear slide created. So again, let's put it into slideshow mode. And we then press enter to start our poll. So again, make a choice. It doesn't matter what one you choose. This is purely just for this example. But it's, you know, this took what, 4 minutes to put together, 3 minutes, and we've got a much more advanced set of slides. So I'm going to close this off now. And this time we want to look at scenario A first, which is fine. So we click on the link. We're going to talk about the content on slide A. Then I want to go to the next poll. Now, again, I don't need to run this. So a little tip, press escape on the keyboard. Poll doesn't need to be run. So then I can go and just click on the option I want. And then I can skip ahead. Another little tip, by the way, if you ever get onto a poll that you've run and there are results, so let's go through these slides here. If I ever wanted to, if I pressed close too early, I wanted to do it again, I can press delete and that will clear the results. So just press the delete key and then I can go again. So we'll just go back onto there and we'll skip ahead. So before we find out if we're more confident, we need to build that comparison slide. So I've got one that's previously created. I'm going to delete that and I'm going to build it again. So we need to go to Vevox, go to add analysis slide, add analysis on a new slide, and we want to compare. So we're going to do slide 6, slide 15, and slide 32. Now I know we've done this already once, but I think it's important to show it again, just to show you how easy it is to do. So we're going to go through and we've got our slides. And again, we'll change that to start, middle, and end. So I just wanted to show you one more time just how easy it is to do. So we'll go back in. Now we've got our last analysis slide created. I'm going to ask you that question one more time. How confident are you now? So I'm hoping that we're going to see the majority of people feeling pretty confident or that they know literally. Literally everything is obviously a bit of an exaggeration on my part when I put it in there, but I wanted to have 4 distinct different options. I'm going to close this off in 3, 2, 1. And we can see we've got most people have now moved into the lower categories. And nobody fundamentally says that I'm new to it, which is important. So if we then reveal the results, we can see that there's been a bit of a shift. So we've had a big blue bar in I'm new to it at the start, and that's now disappeared for the orange vote. There's no orange bar here. We've got this blue bar from not a lot has shrunk every time, and the I'm pretty confident bar has shrunk, and then literally everything wasn't there before, and we've had a few more people vote on that one too. So it gives you an idea that we have shifted the needle, if you like. People are now more confident. So that's kind of it for this session. We've got 9 minutes or so for questions, but before we move on to that, just wanted to plug our upcoming webinars. Every week we do a 0 to hero session. So for those of you that are new or have colleagues that are new to the platform, let them know that this option is here. 0 to hero, 15 minutes every Tuesday at 3 o'clock GMT, hosted by a different colleague every week, and it's just a great way to get started on the platform. We've then got our ongoing pedagogy at Vevox Spring Education Series. Episode 2 is on the 3rd of March, which is all about clickers versus Vevox, and then we've got a 3rd episode on the 7th of April. And then we've got the complete Vevox experience that's being presented by the business team. that kind of encapsulates everything to do with running an effective Vevox session. And that starts ideally in early April. And more details about that will be posted shortly. So let's move over to Q&A. So another little tip there, put a hyperlink for your Q&A. And then we have our dashboard that's open and we can look at our questions. So what I'm also going to do is allow everybody to unmute themselves if they would like. So if you want to ask a question verbally, please do. That's absolutely fine. Unmute yourself and ask me a question. We've got a few questions here. So top one here, really like the picture poll, didn't think of using it that way. That's great. If I've inspired you in some way, I'm really pleased. You know, as you saw, nice and easy to do, but we will have how-to guides put up on our YouTube in case you want to go through it again. Storytelling in PowerPoint, great idea. Again, really appreciate that. That's fantastic to hear. I think this question here was in answer to another question. Do we need this now, or are we getting the Vevox add-in for Teams? So in order to run PowerPoint in Vevox in PowerPoint, you do have to download the PowerPoint add-in from Vevox. So that's from the PowerPoint add-in section on the dashboard. So if I just minimize this and go to my dashboard, that's over here on the left, just PowerPoint add-in. Click that and all the details will be there. Other organizations have it as part of their software center, but the fundamental thing is you also need administrative privileges to be able to install it. So you do have to ask IT to help you get it installed. Loving the picture poll, awesome. This presentation will be available. The recording is going to go available on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it again. Question here, just get rid of hello. How did you create the green glow around your images? I will show you very shortly. Just going to answer this this bottom session. Do I need the PowerPoint add-in on every computer I use it for? Yes. If you're going to be presenting and running your Vevox polls, whatever machine you're doing that on has to have the add-in installed on their machine. If you're just going to send the PowerPoint deck to a colleague so that they can see the data, then no, you don't have to have it on every machine. But if you're going to be presenting, you have to have it there. So you have to download it. There's a question, some people weren't able to get into the session. If you could, if you were one of those people that couldn't get in, please do let me know, because it should have been absolutely fine. Because on PowerPoint, it was nothing to do, sorry, on Vevox, it was nothing to do with PowerPoint, it's on your phone. I'm quite curious. When creating the nonlinear poll, why are we duplicating a poll? So that was because I only had 2 options, and I wanted to show you how you would duplicate it. If you had 3 options, you'd have to run that poll again, and we might not want to delete the data and clear it and run the poll again. We might want to just have that poll ready, so it's easier to duplicate them and have them spaced out accordingly rather than go back and rerun that poll again. That would be my preference. And then how do you create the green glow? So let's go and show you that, because we've got 4 more minutes. So let's end things here. And what you do basically is you have to have a correct answer question to kind of make it work. So let's create a very quick correct answer poll. So I'm going to turn this into a correct answer poll. So I'm going to delete the results. So I'm going to edit it. Yes, and then I'm going to say, which of these stars Mark Wahlberg? Oops, I think I spelled his name right. And we got our 3 options. Now the correct answer is Uncharted. So it's going to rearrange my things on screen because I'm editing, but that's absolutely fine. We don't need to worry about that. We can still move things around. So we know that that percentage goes down there. That percentage goes down there. And this percentage goes over here. I can then go in and select all my shapes. So let's delete the choice text. Let's delete the bars and the numbers. and we're just left with the data labels. Now, this is the tick that I was talking about, right? We don't need that. We can press delete. The way that Vevox is built is all built on animations. So I need to show the animation pane, and let's close display options. You can see that this option 0 is an animation. That is here, the vote trigger, it's all an animation. So what we want to do is just go in and insert a shape. So I'm going to insert again, another kind of rounded rectangle, and I want to send it to the back. So right click. I'm going to actually change the fill first. Let's do the fill, no outline, shape effects. We'll do glow, and we'll choose more glow colors. We'll use that same green. And then one more, we'll do soft edges as well. And then we'll give it a nice glow. Now, if we send that to the back, that's going to then sit behind the image and our number. What I then need to do is give this an animation. So I click on animations, and I want it to fade in. What I also want to do is to have the image kind of like swivel. So that was the theta option. So I've added 2 different animations here. I want to change the timing of my rectangle to 1 second, because then that matches my theta. And what I want to do is start the theta with my previous. So I'm combining them together. So now what I'm doing is I've turned this into a correct answer quiz question. If I press enter, we've now got a different question. Which of these stars Mark Wahlberg? And we know that the answer is Uncharted. So then if I close the poll, we reveal the results. So everybody got it right. If I press enter, it's now just showing that the Uncharted was correct. And because we set it as a correct answer, it's also at the same time revealing that that correct answer is the case on our phones too. So that's how you build that kind of question. So hopefully that answers that one. Could you create a whole choose your adventure for the nonlinear, or is there a limit to the number of questions? Nope, you can create as many different polls as you want. There is no limit at all. You can have 100 polls if you wanted to. Be a very long slide deck, but you could have 100 polls if you wanted to. So I think that actually takes us bang on time at 45 minutes, but has anybody got any other questions before we wrap this up? Again, you can unmute yourself if you want to ask it verbally, or alternatively, you can stick it into Vevox Q&A. I will hang about for a few more minutes if anybody wants to send any questions, but I know we're at time, so if you guys need to leave, please feel free. But yeah, thanks very much for joining. Really appreciate your time, and look forward to speaking to you on the next one. Thank you for all the kind words. By the way, just the 27 people that are still here, there is a survey that I'm going to activate now. I almost forgot, so let's start that survey. There's some very interesting questions in there, one of which is about our video software that we're using. So please do go and fill out that survey if you have a moment. I'd really appreciate it. Did you say PowerPoint add-in has to be allowed by IT? Typically, yes, it does require administrator privileges to be able to install the add-in. In different organizations, obviously that's different, and some people have admin privileges by default. Like me here at Vevox, I've got admin privileges because I need to be able to test out various different pieces of software, so I can just install it myself, no problem. But depending on your setup, you may need to go and contact IT because you need those administrative privileges. If my organization provides access to Vevox, what should I use to log in? So that depends on your login setup. So if you're using standard email address and password to access your account, like you would on the dashboard, then you would use that same process to log in to the dashboard here. Log into the PowerPoint add-in. If your organization has single sign-on, so you're using Microsoft credentials or something else, then you'd have to put in your university or your corporate email address that will then redirect you to that single sign-on page. So the answer to that question really depends on your setup. If you want me to explain that in a bit more detail, please feel free to pop me an email over. It's lewis.terry@vevox.com, and I can explain it in a little bit more detail based on your actual setup rather than just give you a general question. Any other questions here? No, I don't think so. So yeah, there's no more questions from everybody. So if there's nothing else, I will stop this as well. But again, thank you very much for joining the session, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.